Today, the fusion gets lowered.
Alright, so here in the box we've got the rear spring and mount. We've got the tools as well as the dampening adjustments here in this bag. Here's our front coil and strut assembly. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the car jacked up and we're gonna try and do the rear first. I don't know if I have the correct tool to do this. I went to O'Reilly's and they rented me this tool. I don't know how this is gonna work to remove the coil on the front suspension. So we'll see. I might be making another run to O'Reilly's.
Take you over, you just can't breathe.
Alright, so here in the rear, here's the coil. I'm gonna have to try and, it looks like I can access it through this little hole in the bottom, if you can see my fingers. I'm gonna try and go ahead and put this tool on here. I think that's the best way to start, is try and compress the spring, and then we'll end up taking off these sway bar end links, and we'll see how it goes. Alright, so it's been about 2 hours probably since I recorded the last clip, and I finally have everything in here. The hardest part was to get the old coil out. So this old coil is significantly longer than these new ones. I have side by side. You can see they're probably 3 or 4 inches. Well, if you're measuring just the coil, it's probably about 6 inches shorter. So this was a real pain in the butt to get it out, and this spring compressor tool just sucks. It's too long. It ended up actually going too high up inside here in the mount, so there is a hole up here, and it just was running into the frame of the car before it would actually start compressing the spring enough to get it out. So what I ended up having to do is take off the subframe mounts and drop the subframe while still using that coil compressor, just to get it enough to get that coil out. So I'll show you that on the other side.
Do you feel your bones start to shake? Do you feel the earthquake? Do you feel your bones start to shake? Do you feel the earthquake? Do you feel your bones start to shake?
Okay, the shock is out. I will need to pull this top plate off, so we'll just set this aside for the time being. Alright, finally got the coil out. Now what I need to do is transfer this top bracket here off of this one and onto the new one. So I'll go ahead and move the brand new nut off of the new one, and this, okay, and there's all we're trying to save off of this. One thing I do want to notice, or want everyone to notice, is that the original shocks here, the inserts are actually threaded down here. So they're actually, you thread the OEM bolt right into this. These GodSpeed ones, you can tell these are kind of a universal fit because there's no threads inside of this. So they do supply a couple extra nuts to put on the back side that work with the OEM bolts, but that was a little bit disappointing that these weren't threaded. And now I have to get a wrench on the top side of this. So I finished up the coilovers and everything is good for the most part. There are a few things that I haven't quite worked out. So I finished the front installation, which is very straightforward, and I'll kind of show you a couple things about that and explain what I had to do.
One thing I did not really pay attention to when I first started installing it was there's a difference between the front right and front left. So the difference is on the bottom of the coilover, there's a mount for like the brake line and everything, and it holds the line up out of the way. They're inverted from side to side. So I ended up having to redo my front right because of that. Other than that, everything's very straightforward. You unbolt it, bolt it in. You have to swap the top hat of the original coils and strut assembly onto the new coilovers. But everything lined right up, no issues there. The only thing I don't know how to adjust or where it needs to be is the sway bar end links. They are adjustable, but I think that might be where I have a slight knocking sound coming from the front end at different speeds. Same thing with the rear. Everything's buttoned up back there, but the back right gives me a noise every once in a while, so I still don't really know what that is. It's not terrible. It sounds similar to ball joints. So I've gone back through, put it back on the lift, checked everything out, and it still makes that sound just occasionally. Here in a minute, I'll give you a walk around. We're gonna go wash the car real quick and try and make it a little bit more photogenic for the video, and you can see what you guys think. Catch you at the car wash. All right, so I just gave the car a quick little wash, and it's not the best. I wiped it down just to try and get some of the grime off so you guys have a better idea of what it looks like with a clean vehicle. So coming in close, you can see the front wheel here. I'll straighten it out here in a moment. You can see the fitment. So here I can barely get one finger, and I don't have this as low as possible. I have it so that I can still run my spacers. I have 1-inch spacers on the front and rear of the car. So that keeps the wheels pretty flush with the outside edge of the car. And that was really my goal, was to still be able to control how the car sat, as well as have those wheels nice and flush. All right, so real quickly, I straightened out the wheels, and you can see up here, I have just slightly over a finger's width there. I think it sits really well. You can see how nice the wheel gap is on the front and rear now.
Come on.